You know, people say they want flawed heroes, but they can get bent out of shape when they get them. It's that time of the year again where we see if the MCU's latest stream series offering is straight fire or fizzle, and this one had an uphill battle even before day one. Now that's not to throw shade at Ironheart, as I've been in general pretty checked out with the MCU compared to my hype for the revived DC Universe content coming soon. In general, I've been very indifferent to the character of Riri Williams. I never really checked out her solo books, only because I had my own pools and Western comics can get expensive. So my only experience with her was in teen books like The Champions, which I think she's alright. There's been a lot of online discourse about this show leading up to the premiere, and seeing as it's about a snarky super genius black girl, you can bet there's been the most unwashed of opinions out there about it, complete with micro dick energy review bombing the show before it was even out. Fun times. But even with the coordinated rage bait bullshit going on, Ironheart has always been a middling character with the fans, who kinda just find her okay or likable enough. With how hit or miss the MCU streaming content has been, can this show give the 1-2 punch to rocket Miss Williams to popularity? Well, with it being produced by Ryan Coogler, aka the director of both Black Panther movies and coming off of directing one of the most successful and critically acclaimed vampire movies of recent times, yeah, that would do it. Hey team, Phantom Skull, the super security VTuber here, and today we're looking at the first season of Ironheart to see how they set Riri on her first solo outing, and see where they might be taking this semi-heroic hot mess of a bad girl genius. So suit up and get your best Payday 2 playlist because it's time for some super crime.
Oh man, it's just like Spy Kids.
We pick up with Riri, played by Dominique Thorne, after her adventures in Wakanda and dealing with having a hit put on her by sexy South American Aquaman. Instead, she's now dealing with being kicked out of MIT when her great hustling side gig finally catches up with her. This scene thankfully circumvents needing to have watched Black Panther 2, as it gives you everything you need to know about Riri in a pretty natural conversation of her trying to sob story her way out of trouble. She's a teen genius from Chicago who dreams of making life-saving power suits like Tony's, but admits she wants to get her name in the history books on her own terms, and resorted to helping kids plagiarize projects for money to fund her suits since super tech isn't cheap. This scene quickly establishes a lot about Riri that helps make a lot of her choices in the show make sense. She's a kid with insane intelligence, drive, and seemingly noble intentions who wants to revolutionize emergency services with her suits. But at the same time, she's shown to have a bit of an ego alongside being willing to cross a lot of ethical lines to a point to get the money she needs for her work. But most of all, much like a certain wall crawler, the show quickly establishes behind the S-ranked genius mechanical intellect, she's still a dumbass teenager with F-ranked common sense. She really didn't see the issue with helping other students plagiarize for money, nor did the thought that any of these dumbasses she's helping cheat weren't going to get caught and immediately rat her out ever cross her mind. Her inability to think things through when the problem isn't mechanical or scientific is a recurring challenge for her throughout Season 1. Now out of an MIT fellowship and forced to leave, she very literally takes her toys and goes home to Chicago. You'd think somebody would ask if she had a permit for a fully operational suit of power armor, but hey, land of the free, baby. Sadly, her sleek prototype suit gets wrecked when the school shuts down her access to their campus AI and is forced to crash land. Broke, living with her estranged mom again, and reconnecting with her old friends and family, Riri looks for ways to continue her work without needing to sell her soul to corporate America. She soon gets scouted by local crime wizard The Hood and his merry little band of skilled, diverse misfits, and Eric Andre, to rob a lot of corrupt megacorps and needing a tech person. She soon finds herself wrapped up in a wild crime drama she fails to realize the danger she's putting herself in until it's too late, and now needs to find a way out before she ends up in prison or a ditch. Not helping matters is her trying to come to terms with the tragic deaths of her best friend Natalie and her stepdad Gary. Both of them tragically died in a stray drive-by shooting, something she's still suffering PTSD over, and while using her brainwaves to make a replacement AI, accidentally makes a sentient AI ghost copy of said BFF, who honestly ends up stealing the show for me.
Natalie?
Well, who the hell else would it be, bitch?
For the first 3 episodes, we established the MCU's version of Chicago, and Riri's circle of supporting characters, while also giving the resident bad girl genius a lot of focus she lacked in Black Panther 2. MCU Riri has been an interesting character to follow because while she's very enjoyable and deep down someone who wants her inventions to help people, altruistic Reed Richards she is not. She's got a load of character flaws, and the show makes it clear these are flaws. Right from the get-go, MIT's Dean calls out her borderline supervillain speech about them trying to make her feel small, and how she didn't understand the ramifications of her actions, alongside pointing out how the school bent over backwards to cover for her antics until it hit a breaking point. Riri is fascinating as, while she has many qualities of the late Tony Stark, such as his snarky ego but drive to innovate and see their inventions better people's lives, she also has just as many similar qualities to his first nemesis, Obadiah Stane, which is equally appropriate for a character we'll talk about in a bit. She can be coldly pragmatic and focused on money and reaching her goals by any means necessary, just like the old Ironmonger. She has a very nasty, manipulative streak that's very specifically called out by many characters, including her own mother. She has equal parts hero and villain in her, and while the show is riding a fine line, it makes it clear that you're not supposed to look at Riri or her story from a bluntly black and white lens. She's generally shady and willing to do illegal things, such as extortion, theft, industrial sabotage, but she draws the line at hurting or killing innocent people. And above all, she's not perfect or infallible. A lot of the story is hitting home that for all of her brilliance, she's still a foolish teenager who lacks a lot of life experience and common sense, since she buried herself into her work to avoid her trauma about Natalie and Gary's deaths. While to the viewer, her agreeing to work with Hood's crew seems naive and stupid, that is the point. Everyone, including the barely 3-day-old AI, can see how bad of an idea this is. But we wouldn't have as many classic crime dramas if the young, cash-strapped upstart didn't make poor life choices. Riri isn't a paragon, and I love that. Not every hero needs to be a goody two-shoes, and the narrative has made it clear that Riri is making bad choices. Season 1 is all about her getting a dark mirror shoved into her face, and her having to come to terms with her choices, and leaving her at the crossroads of being better than what she is now. The show is unrelenting in spelling it out that this season is making her confront her worst qualities, and the trauma that drives her to them. She's someone who's afraid of being hurt again, and pushes away anything that triggers that pain. It also leaves her unable to see the cold monster it's turning her into, until her poor choices start to affect others like Zeke and her mother. When she asks Xavier if she's a good person, this isn't her looking for sympathy. She's legitimately asking this question. Self-reflection is a skill that's very hard to attain, and it's often a slow one. It's a very slow one for Riri, though. Hood has her pegged in their final confrontation. All that genius, and she only made her suits for herself.
You were so sure that you were one of the good ones. But now look at you. You have your fancy suit, but you're not gonna use it to stop a speeding train or save the city from an asteroid. No, you just want this power for yourself.
That's not why I'm here. It's not worth the cost.
Face it, Riri, you're a criminal, like me.
While deep down it was about never letting her or her mom be hurt again like Gary and Nat were, she fails to see that her suit is as much a crutch to her as the hood is for Parker. Riri Williams isn't a hero. She might become one in the future, but she has a long road ahead of her now that she's starting to learn from her worst aspects and letting go of her grief. Unfortunately, as of her choices at the end, while intended by her to be a noble sacrifice, which I'll cover in a bit, it's still gonna be a bumpy ride for the bad girl genius. Alongside our troubled super genius, we have Natalie, Riri's sentient AI that resembles and acts exactly like her deceased BFF. Played by Lyra Cross, she quickly establishes herself as equal parts comic relief and a vital support character that Riri needs since she stubbornly refuses to confront her guilt and trauma about their deaths. This kid is in such denial, I'm surprised she didn't accidentally fly into Silent Hill at this point. Honestly, Nat is shaping up to be my favorite character. She's funny, sarcastic, and quickly establishes to be the kick in the pants Riri needs to course correct her life. Though Riri is still hung up trying to figure out how her unsorted trauma made a sentient AI. While Riri is at first, and to be fair, justified in being unnerved by her suit's AI assistant looking and acting like her dead best friend, she quickly warms up to the digital copy as she tries to help her with her trauma. There's a really heavy but sweet scene when Riri starts to have a panic attack from being back at the garage where they were gunned down, and Nat helps soothe and comfort her till she calms down. Something the original Nat knew how to do. Now, it needs to be clarified that within the show, Natalie the human being and Natalie the AI in all caps acronym are treated as separate entities and identities, in spite of the confusion she has with having all of the original Nat's memories. Yada yada, insert shipper thesis speech here. Natalie's role in the narrative is important, as she ends up being the onboard therapist Riri apparently never got during that MIT fellowship. She helps her realize an important lesson about her issues of pushing everything and everyone away that makes her confront her emotions over the garage tragedy is not healthy. Nat quickly became a core character in the show, and her independence and identity is slowly being explored in between, trying to keep Riri alive from her poor life choices. It makes the latter half of the show all the sadder, seeing both her brother Xavier's horrified and disgusted reaction to AI Nat, and then her apparent death when the magic upgrades to Riri's season finale suit delete her. She was the emotional core of Ironheart, and you can see throughout her final battle with Hood and her encounter with this guy, that Riri is lost and numb without her friend. The rest of the cast has been pretty good too. Riri's mom, played by Angie White, is sweet, but clearly struggling to reconnect with her hot mess supergenius daughter, but also clearly still grieving her late ex-husband Gary. At the very least, she is trying to be there for Riri. But I feel like some more alarm bells should be going off of her recently blacklisted college dropout kid constantly disappearing for several evenings with her garage power armor, which does come to a head when she realizes Riri lied to her to get help from their local magic hookup to figure out Hood's cape, and calls her out for manipulating her. But when Riri finally hits rock bottom and comes home needing her help, she quickly stows away her anger and I told you so energy to finally be there for her daughter. A rare trait for some parents. She becomes a much needed rock for Riri to finally anchor herself to, and with Natalie's help, gets her to confront her need to push away all memories of the past to avoid being hurt again, and make her realize how it's hollowing her out inside. It's thanks to her mom that she finally starts taking the steps to moving on from her trauma. At least until old Scratch here gets involved, but we'll get to him. Xavier, Natalie's brother, has also been a sweet supporting character. Played by Matthew Elam, he's an aspiring musician, and while clearly still mourning the loss of his sister, is handling it in a much healthier way than Riri. A lot of his scenes were gently countering Riri's habit of pushing away everything that reminds her of Nat and Gary because of the pain. Riri mentioned selling Gary's classic Barracuda car for suit parts, but the way she says it and looks, it's very clear she sold it because it caused her too much pain to have around, to constantly remind her that he's gone. When Riri buys him a new set of headphones, while he's grateful, admits he'd rather keep using Natalie's old headphones, as they help him feel close to her as he flows with his music. Riri clearly took this to heart, as after her mom reveals she bought back the Barracuda, they take it apart and use it to make her new iconic armor, both symbolically making Gary's memory a part of her, and taking advantage of the fact classic cars were built like tanks. His feelings on Natalie's death make his crash out at Riri making what, to him, was basically a Siri version of his sister without talking to him about it, make a lot more sense. While he eventually forgives her and they sit down and talk about it, he makes it clear even with context he's not okay with this, but stows it since it's what Riri needs to heal. They do tease some romance between them, but it's smartly kept to the back burner for everyone involved. Except for Natalie, who's all about this ship. While they mostly become relevant in the second half of the season, Zelma Stanton and her mom Madeline Stanton, played by Reagan Alila and voiced every black female cartoon character of my generation, pre-Summer respectfully, were very enjoyable characters that happily averted my expectations. When it became clear we were dealing with a crime wizard, I thought, okay, when's Wong's cameo? But Ryan Coogler clearly knows how fatigued viewers are with cameos and interconnectivity stuff in superhero movies. Ironheart avoids this entirely. Everyone in the show is an organic part of the story, and while some might have connections to other MCU characters, they are expressly Ironheart characters. So we got local Chicago mother and daughter witches to deal with the hocus pocus exposition. Their scenes together are brief but sweet, comparing and contrasting that while Zelma has her own rebellious streak, the pair have a much healthier mother-daughter relationship than Riri and Ronnie. While she's inexperienced and admits she's half-guessing with her magic research, which is how they masterfully set up the red herring of Dormammu being the hood's demonic sugar daddy, she's all Riri's gonna get with magical assistance. Last but not least, we have Joe McKillah. Okay, I warned you all there'd be unmarked spoilers, so let's cut to the chase. Ezekiel Stane, played by Alden Ehrenreich, was the biggest surprise for the supporting cast. Finding the son of the OG Iron Man villain as an altruistic-minded but heavily neurotic and spineless black market tech guy was quite a surprise. Young Solo proves to be a needed friend for Riri as much as she ends up being one for him. Initially. Though they do get off on the wrong foot by blackmailing each other. Though Riri doesn't push it, just getting what she needs from him for the suit, and even convincing him to stand up for himself. Which ends up with him blackmailing her back to help workshop his own tech ideas, in return for not tattling on her to her mom. Deep down, he wants to use tech to help people, in no small part due to the guilt of being Ironmonger's son. He feels deep shame in his father's greed and obsession with using tech only for profitable weapon applications. One of his biggest concerns is that he sees a bit of his father in Riri, but wants a friend above all else. Which makes the fact that Riri accidentally screwed him by leaving his nanomesh she borrowed at a crime scene all the more heartbreaking. Him taking the fall for the crew, having his life destroyed, and everyone calling him a disgrace to his father's legacy, since nobody but a select few know the truth about how he actually died, breaks the mild-mannered man. When Riri is clearly still not taking the ramifications of what she's done seriously, he crashes out hard, ranting at how selfish and manipulative she is. And when Parker comes calling to break him out and get payback against her, he jumps at it. One of the greatest tragedies of Season 1 is Zeke's transformation into a supervillain, the one thing he spent most of his life trying to avoid. Even when he comes at Riri with his new biomesh powers, you can tell he's just venting his rage. When he has her dead to rights, he still can't bring himself to kill her, giving her a chance to skip town. And when the Hood forcefully takes control of his bionics, he's apologetic to everyone he hurts. Zeke only shows his wrath to people he feels deserves it, such as Riri and his awful neighbor. When they have their second battle, he's quick to let Riri help him break Parker's control, but his final scene makes it clear he hasn't forgiven Riri, and they're far from finished. Zeke's storyline is a tragedy, as it's a case of Riri's selfishness and carelessness turning a good man into her own personal supervillain. Where he goes past Season 1 will be interesting to say the least. Before we move on to the villains, lastly, while he's not plot relevant, this kid with the wagon is an absolute delight in every scene he's in. He's such an adorable hustler, and his actor gives such hilarious energy to his lines. Okay, time to meet the island of misfit supervillains Riri finds herself part of in this diverse heist crew. I'm saving the Hood and his cousin John for last, as I have the most to say about them, so let's do a lightning round with their cronies. First off, we got Clown. Played by Sonia Dennis, she's a pyromaniac smartass with a whole tool of fire-themed robbery tools. In the comics, she's quite literally a clown and member of the Circus of Crime who also got gamma mutated into a bird person and rebranded as Griffin? comic books, everybody. She's been funny, all things considered, and the most principled, covering for Zeke when he lies to Hood about letting Riri live, and confronting him about Rampage's death, with her leading them to breaking ties with their out-of-control leader. Then we have the Blood siblings, played by Shakira Barrera and Zoe Terakis, who act as the muscle of the group. They provide some pretty nice, grounded hand-to-hand fight scenes as they pack up waves of their corporate target security guards. Glad I'm not one of them. In the comics, they're a pair of alien brothers and one of many henchmen to Thanos. Here, they're just a disgraced pair of human athletes made up of a sister and a non-binary chump. Like Clown, they were okay. They do their job of providing fun, low special effects fights for the show. We also have this absolute queen known ironically as Slug, played by Shea Coulee. Slug is the team's hacker in the sense of bullshit Hollywood hacking, which involves fastly clicking those nails for 30 seconds and having access to every network possible. Besides enjoying their very sassy and snarky personality, it is interesting to look as far as the changes, since the comic version of Slug is literally, we have Kingpin at home. And finally we have Stewart.
It's Rampage.
I'm sorry, Rampage. This short-lived comic relief played by Eric Andre was the team's original bad tech guy, which is why Hood and John scouted Riri in the first place. Ironically, his comics version is similar to Riri's start in this show. An engineer who gets fired, takes an experimental suit of exo-armor, and goes on a crime spree. His unfortunate death sets the tone for the rest of the show, and finally hammers into Riri what kind of dangerous people she's gotten tangled up with. All in all, these principled crooks were a lot of fun to watch, and I hope they come back since all but Rampage make it to the finale alive. Maybe working under the less deranged Zeke perhaps, since they know each other, and one of them is at least down to clown with Ironmonger Jr. here. Time to talk about our lead villains, the Hood, aka Parker Robbins, played by Anthony Ramos, and his cousin, second-in-command, John, played by Manny Montana. Parker and John make for an intimidating duo. Unlike the rest of this merry band of misfits, these two are legitimate gangsters. John is such an example of it, I'd swear he'd be at home as the villain of the week of a cable cop show. As for the Hood, he was certainly an interesting choice to be Riri's first foe, beyond breaking the trend of the hero having a similarly powered antagonist, with this becoming a battle of magic and science. The Hood quickly establishes himself as a cunning and charming manipulator, convincing Riri to join his crew pretty easily. He had her pegged from the get-go and said all the right things to lure her in. With that kind of manipulation skills and that drippy cloak, I'd wonder if he was a Sith Lord in another galaxy far, far away. Which is rather interesting if you know about the comics Hood, who, well, is kind of an idiot. Like in the comics, Parker's a crude, malicious little hoodlum who can barely string even the simplest of plans together without blowing up in his face, with his only redeeming qualities being his love for his family. That cloak's not for +5 charisma either. It gives Hood the power to turn invisible when he holds his breath, and I'm assuming longer than average breath-holding abilities, since he spends a lot of time waiting for his crew to set up his menacing entrances. If that wasn't enough, it also allows him to change the trajectory of bullets he fires like he walked off the set of Wanted. Parker and John make for a dangerous duo, with Parker using his honey-coated charisma to keep their crew motivated, and John being the tough, no-nonsense enforcer who scares them back into line when he has to, alongside handling the more brutal and vicious aspects of their operations behind the scenes. Despite being a nominal tech hero and a crime wizard respectfully, Riri and Hood have more in common than you'd think, which makes him a perfect shadow archetype for her. They're both ambitious, driven individuals who have dreams of aspiring beyond their perceived stations in life, and both aren't afraid to get their hands a little dirty to get to their goals. How dirty they're willing to get those hands is where the differences between them start to manifest. Both of them have issues with stubborn pride. Both of them fear being nobodies and strive to leave their mark on the world, having little care for the damage they intentionally or unintentionally cause. Hood more so than Riri, admittedly. Riri refuses to take the danger she's putting herself in seriously, thinking she has her life under control, only for Stewart's death to finally awaken her from her hubris, and even then, she refuses to own up to her more villainous qualities until episode 5. Similarly, Hood suffers from this as well. When John tries to convince him to call off the risky heist against the Monsanto parody heirloom, an ill-timed soundbite of the man we'll eventually find out is his dad calling the crew petty thieves drives him to push forward out of spite. Now, if there's one thing both Comics Hood and MCU Hood have in common, it's becoming violently enraged when disrespected. Parker considered himself a nobody until he got the Hood. He has a severe case of self-esteem issues, and is desperate to be taken seriously as a major player in supervillainy, when at the end of the day, he's still just a violent street thug with a magic cloak. This was best shown when his plans went sideways and he was mocked by Heirloom's cocky CEO that he immediately loses his cool and murders the corporate tool in a furious rage. Though to be fair, this dude thought talking the guy who appeared out of thin air and soloed his own security to his face was a good idea, with the kind of bloated confidence only someone with $1 billion in their checking account and a few bought-off congressmen can have. Plus, if you know anything about the real-life company Heirloom is a parody of, then he most certainly had it coming. John is even worse at keeping his cool. He's much more openly ruthless, killing Stuart for being an inconvenience and to ensure no loose ends, and almost kills Riri, a young woman, when he realizes she knows about his crime. Riri leaving him to die after he tried to kill her has been a point of contention. A very minor one to me, since A, Riri is a nominal type of hero, if not a straight-up anti-hero at this point, so it makes sense for her. B, the ones saying it are the same performative outrage dorks crying about her existing period. And C, everyone else was quick to clown on them by pointing out her predecessor Tony had a body count in almost every movie he showed up in. There's really no argument here. Regardless, Hood takes his death as well as you'd think. They were very close and clearly cared about each other as family, being the only one he considered family after his dad threw him out. His final scenes in episode 3 show him lashing out at his cousin's death, screaming at an unknown entity, which reveals to the viewer that Parker has a co-pilot with his cloak, and it's very much not Jesus. I'm saving his partner for last, so again, we'll get to him. The Hood, behind the smooth-talking and grandiose promises, is much like Riri, an emotionally stunted manipulator who's looking for the solution to his strifes in all the wrong places. Unlike Riri, who sorta learns not to push away her grief or giving in to her worst instincts, Parker refuses to let go of his need for power and riches, driven by his warped perception of what will make him a respected person. And ultimately, despite the flowery speeches of greatness he gives to his team, this was all about revenge against his rich father who threw him out when he was 12. Every company they hit was a company he had major stakes in, and the final heist was to take his home and company as his final f*** you. He didn't just want payback, he also wanted to make his father see him as an equal or superior. However, his final victory against him ends up ringing hollow. Parker's dad has nothing but indifference for his disowned son, saying abandoning him was nothing personal, just business. Something that hits Parker hard since he too uses mantra when using and abusing people. Guess the apple didn't fall far from the tree then. He got what he wanted, but he had no one to share it with. John was dead, and the rest of the crew leave after both they figure out that he killed Rampage, and also has a violent outburst against them due to his cloak addiction. His paranoia grows to the point that the only ones at his side are the ones he's forcing to be there, such as Zeke, and the one manipulating him. Parker's dad, while a scumbag in his own right, wasn't wrong when he gives this last bit of advice to his son.
You think you deserve all this, but I bet good money, I mean real good money, that to get where you are in this moment, you screwed a few people. Probably some who loved you. It's the cost of doing business. But the kick is, it's never gonna be enough.
He wished to be stupid, greasy, disgusting rich. But when you get that kind of rich, it's never enough, like he said. That lust for power is eating away at him as much as the price he's paying for the cloak is. When Hood and Riri have their final battle, He's left as nothing but a feral demonic addict driven further by his lust for more power, and left a pitiful junkie suffering demonic withdrawal after she tricks him. But as the end credits show, you can't keep a good hustler down as he picks himself up and starts looking for new hookups for his magic fix. Probably should have warned your friends what Parker looked like if you plan to let him live, Riri. But that's a Season 2 problem for you. Before we wrap up the character discussion, it's time to talk about the demonic elephant in the room. People thought the Hood being in Ironheart was out of left field, so imagine our shock when effing Marvel's Satan debuted in it as well. After all these years, Mephisto finally makes his grand entrance, and it's all I could ask for. Sacha Baron Cohen nailed his character. This master manipulator was so good at putting on an act of friendliness and almost genuine enthusiasm as he sells Parker and Riri on their respective deals, and the blink and you'll miss it sneer in his smile. This is the ultimate con man. Mephisto oozed presence and terror in every scene he was in. I could just feel how unnatural he was to this entire plot, and it made it feel so much better. Some reviewers felt it was stupid that Riri made a deal with him, but again, Riri was only on the start of her journey to better herself. That kind of stuff doesn't happen overnight, and he knew what to say to wear her down. Even if Riri was starting to heal about Nat's death, both Nats at this point, he's not wrong. Not all mental wounds heal. I've personally known people who never got over the loss of someone in their lives. Everyone is different, and someone like Riri wasn't going to just get over it. So of course the emotionally drained Riri would make a deal with him. At the very least, it was a noble wish, one born out of her grief, and her wish to have her friend back, instead of one born out of greed and spite like Parker's wish was. But like any good devil, he granted her wish to save Nat, but abusing the law of exact words. He revived a Natalie, but not the one that we've known most of the season. Where Ironheart goes from here with the real Natalie now alive, and our hero in air quotes having sold her soul for it, will be quite a ride. And I'm sure Big M will be watching alongside us with popcorn. If I had any other thoughts before I wrapped up this review, I'd say I love the effects on Riri's armor, especially her mainline Season's End armor. It's very refreshing to have power armor that's actually a mini mecha styled bit of tech instead of nano machines. If I had any complaints about the show, and honestly I'd call them nitpicks over anything, but while it's interesting to see our protagonist go on a high-tech Grand Theft Auto styled heist adventure, I feel like they're stretching the limits of believability that nobody has been knocking on Riri's door about them yet. Hood's crew aren't exactly subtle, refusing to wear masks or even gloves while committing numerous high-profile crimes. And while super soldiers, wizards, and power-armored goons are a dime a dozen these days in the MCU, the people who can make Option C are a pretty short list. You're telling me nobody is looking at the recently disgraced genius teenager MIT dropout who just came back to Chicago when a crime group with a specific type of power armor starts shaking down megacorps? Like, really? But this is a minimal complaint for me, and maybe it will crop up in Season 2. We'll see. If I had a major criticism, it would unfortunately be the direction of our main protagonist, Riri. So let's circle back to her to wrap things up. While I did appreciate having a flawed and borderline villainous protagonist, Riri does sort of grate on your goodwill as the season drags on. The main issue is that Riri lacks a lot of charm and relatability to make viewers not look at her actions as harshly. It's not very fun to follow her path when all she does all season is complain about everything, gaslight everyone, and only sorta learn her lesson at the end without a lot of consequences for her actions. Like, even ignoring her committing serious crimes against stock shady megacorps who you can argue have it coming, she ruined Zeke's life and turned him into a supervillain. She did things that would usually land you in the raft, but gets off rather scot-free beyond selling her soul, which was her own choice. The issue comes that it's hard to accept this when our main character is a charmless, egotistical sociopath you either just feel sorry for or pull your hair out at her never-ending dumb choices. Now, if this was a straight-up crime drama and not a superhero story with flavors of it, I feel she'd work better, but it's just not engaging to have such an unlikable, flawed protagonist. Like, I needed to struggle to frame her positives in her segment earlier. That's the main issue with Riri. She's written like she should be the protagonist of a crime drama, but the narrative makes it clear she's not supposed to be the one who knocks by the end of this. But she lacks a lot of qualities that would make fans endear them to her in spite of her bad choices. Zeke works better as a flawed character. Hell, the Hood, our main villain, has more moments of genuine humanity than Riri. Now, don't get it twisted, this isn't a knock on her actress Dominique Thorne. She absolutely nails Riri's role as an emotionally stunted sociopath who never went to therapy. This is more of an issue with the writing and direction. And even then, I need to clarify that this is the only flaw in that department, because the amazing supporting cast and direction helps prop up Riri's flaws as a protagonist. When I was watching this and discussing it with my fellow superhero nerd pal No Limit 3020, who is an amazing streamer over on the Purple site, and you should totally go check them out, by the way, link below. They made a really great point about why Riri doesn't work completely that I wanted to share in this video. I keep comparing Riri to Moon Girl's animated series. They share a lot of similarities, but Moon Girl is a fun character to follow because she exhibits more personality of being a normal teenage girl who struggles with normal teenage girl things. Riri lacks the relatability by just being too cool for school, literally, a genius who looks down on others, and an inability to grow. It's not fun to follow her. They make a great point that the sadly cancelled Moon Girl is a better Riri. She's also an egotistical genius who makes dumb mistakes, but you see her positive traits and you want to see her succeed. Even if I get where they were going with her, I can understand why Miss Williams didn't endear herself to some viewers. Only time will tell if Season 2 sees them actually confronting this issue and making Riri someone we want to see succeed, outside of the fact that she's the protagonist. While the usual clown shows have rolled into town in full force to jeer the show and anyone daring to find enjoyment with it, people's responses to the show on social media and ratings have spoken much louder than their bullshit. While it's not without issues, it's been a blast to watch, and Riri has grown on me a lot as a flawed protagonist. As someone who's been pretty checked out with the MCU, Ironheart passed my expectations and rocketed my enthusiasm back to the good old days, and I'm hungry for more. While Riri has a long road ahead of her, and I wonder if they can stick the landing with her eventual path to being a more traditional hero when the teen movies start calling, I'm very much along for the ride to see where our bad girl genius goes next. And I definitely will be here for more iconic Natalie quips. Thanks for watching. Hey, thanks for checking out my video. If you liked it, I'd appreciate a like and a comment. I'd love to hear your opinions on Ironheart and its characters. What all did you like or dislike about this season? What things were you hoping to see more of next season if it ends up getting a season 2? Be sure to subscribe for more super security VTuber action and superhero analysis videos. And I need to give a huge thank you to everyone who's helped me get to where I am today. I've been so excited to debut my proper VTuber model, and I'm just so happy I could do it here on this Ironheart video. And I just can't thank you all enough for your support and patience as I worked out the kinks with my artists. It's been a long journey so far this year with a lot of ups and downs, and I'm forever thankful for those who've joined me. Thank you to my model artist Yue Yin for making my design a reality. And thank you to my wonderful friend Susu Tandem for her amazing work on rigging my model. I wouldn't be here without her hard work and her amazing advice as a fellow VTuber. I'm super excited for what's ahead, and I hope you all will join me. And I very much hope that you go give Susu a lot of love and support, as she's also a fellow VTuber on Twitch. And I'm happy to announce that I have a Patreon now. Now, I don't expect you all to support me, but if you do feel inclined to help me with improving the channel and being able to more regularly post videos, all the help is appreciated. I'm keeping it pretty simple with a single $5 tier that gets you everything. Access to our Discord, exclusive work-in-progress content of future videos, suggest and vote on video topics, and get your name shouted out at the end here. If you want to join, I really appreciate your support. Links are below. Again, not expecting any support, but if you can swing it, I know times are tough, I would greatly appreciate it. Got even more amazing videos planned ahead, so get ready for a lot more super security fun. Thank you all again, and I'll see you all next time.